Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners, to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. It is a Pewter post-game show where we have to break down really a shocking performance as the Buccaneers not just lost, but fell in despair, getting absolutely shellacked by the Denver Broncos by a score of 26-7. It was never close. The game was done by the first quarter, and the Bucs could not find any rhythm at all on offense or defense throughout the game. So here to break it all down is myself, Matt Matera, joined with me live from Raymond James Stadium is the face that runs the place at PewterReport.com, Scott Reynolds. Scott, this was quite the surprising outcome based on what we talked about this morning and throughout the whole week, but here we are. The Bucs are 2-1 and not 2-1 the way that we thought they would be.
Yeah, this is just absolutely embarrassing. This is disgraceful on everybody. Poor coaching, poor game planning, poor execution by the players, poor adjustments, really no adjustments. This was as total of a team loss as you could possibly get. And, as Zion McCollum said after the game, and I'll get you the exact quote in a minute, he was very insightful. And I thought out of the Buccaneers, he was one of maybe the better players today. Yeah. But this was a situation where he said, we were happy all week, and the Broncos were pissed off all week. They were 0-2, right? 0-2 isn't quite the graveyard in the NFL. It's very tough sledding to have a good season when you start off 0-2. But 0-3, you can pretty much order the coffin, right, for your season. It's hard to overcome 0-3. So this is a Denver Broncos team. They came in here pissed off. They had everything to play for, nothing to lose, and they wanted it more. They were the more intense football team. They went down and punched the Buccaneers defense in the mouth right off the bat. They got Bo Nix in a rhythm. Sean Payton completely outcoached Todd Bowles again, and the rest was history. On offense, Baker Mayfield was not in rhythm at any point in the game. Liam Cohen, I thought the play calling was very disjointed. I don't know how many carries we need to see from Bucky Irving anymore to tell us that he should be the lead running back. It's crystal clear, Matt, and we'll get into this in a second. But, I mean, this is a small sample size, 3 weeks. But you go back to the preseason, Bucky just makes it happen on the ground. 9 carries, 70 yards, a 7.8-yard average. Rachaad White, 6 carries, 17 yards, a 2.8-yard average. He just is not running with power. He's not running with vision. And Bucky is. That 32-yard run. I mean, he's had 2 carries this year so far, over 30 yards. I can't remember how many Rachaad White carries went over 30 yards last year, but not many. Bucky, in his brief NFL debut here, has had 2 games where he's had a 30-yard play. We need to see more Bucky Irving, because when he gets those first downs, they're impact plays. They keep this Buccaneer offense alive. And right now it's on life support after these last 2 showings between the Detroit game and today's game.
Yeah, Bucky Irving just brings more electricity when he's in the game. He's the only one that's ripping off explosive runs. The best thing that Rachaad White has done so far in this season was the screen game attack in that first game against Washington, but they really haven't gone back to that with Rachaad White over the last 2 games. So it's limited his overall, skill set and usefulness for the team. And I think we're learning, now that we're 3 games in, is that just the Washington defense is atrocious, and the Bucs took advantage of it, where over the next 2 weeks, they didn't look too pretty scoring 20 points against the Lions. Like, they won that game, but that was a story more about the defense than it was, the offense being fantastic. And then you look at today, once again, the running game didn't get going until they had to go to the pony package and have both running backs on the field just to make sure Bucky got the football. So Bucky should be the starter. That's one of the first adjustments that need to be made. The offensive line, while they did a poor job pass blocking and run blocking, terrible. Baker Mayfield ran himself into a couple of sacks as well. It was just like, really, we said last week, like, all 3 phases of the game, like, did their job to help win the game. Well, this week, all 3 phases of the game for the Buccaneers did their job to lose the game. I mean, the Bucs were
Yes.
awful on their opening drive defensively,
No doubt.
letting Denver go straight down the field. Then the Bucs offense goes 3 and out. Then the Bucs defense finally gets a stop, and Baker Mayfield throws a terrible interception. And then, special teams wise, the Bucs clearly weren't kicking much because they weren't scoring. But then also they had bad punt coverage early in the game.
Yeah.
So just nothing went right. They couldn't tackle either. They had stupid penalties, 2 offside penalties in a row. Surprising and just overall aggravating, because this is what we said. Like, if the Bucs were going to get upset, it was going to be stupid turnovers and mistakes like missed tackles and penalties. And they did that to a T. Like, they
did.
Panicked when they went down 7-0, but then the interception was a panic play. And a lot of the penalties were panic plays. And again, like, they couldn't make the stop on 4th and goal. Anthony Nelson makes that stop, or KJ Britt makes that stop. That's a momentum change in play, and they just didn't have it.
Yeah. And we talk about the personnel usage, right? And you don't know what's going to happen. There's no crystal ball to basically determine the outcome of any particular plays. But when you look at KJ Britt, he's not as fast as Servassier Dennis, and maybe Servassier Dennis makes that tackle because he gets there on 4th down. And Anthony Nelson, he's limited with his agility, right? He's a big, lanky 6'7" guy, but he did enough to kind of halt the progress of Jaleel McLaughlin. McLaughlin. And that's a play that's got to be cleaned up. If you're KJ Britt, you got to make that play. That's the difference between winning and losing. It's the plays that you make and you don't make. And Denver made the plays, and Tampa Bay didn't. I mean, outside of that one fumble recovery by Logan Hall that was forced by Levante David, this defense didn't make plays. It just didn't. Jamel Dean got eaten alive by Courtland Sutton. And I just thought that Sean Payton just completely outcoached Todd Bowles. And this is something that goes back to those days when the Saints, remember, they came in here, and granted, completely different cast of characters, right? Drew Brees, Bo Nix, et cetera, right? Huge difference. But the Saints came in here on a Sunday night with a Tom Brady-led Buccaneer team and waxed Tampa Bay 38-3 here at Raymond James Stadium. So Sean Payton is no stranger to this venue and going head-to-head with Todd Bowles and usually coming out on the winning side of the ledger. Todd Bowles did sweep the Saints in his first year as the head coach, but that was with Dennis Allen as the head coach, not Sean Payton. So just you have to give Sean Payton his props, and it's sad to say that Tampa Bay was out game planned, out executed, outperformed, beaten to the punch. The Broncos are the more physical team. This is a Tampa Bay team that was feeling good, that had a chance to go 3-0, and you hope that this loss doesn't come back to bite them at the end of the season, where maybe they're at 9 wins and they should have had 10, or 10 wins they should have had 11, or whatever the situation is. Matt, you and I talked about it. Worst case scenario, if they do lose, which they did, at least it's an AFC loss. It's not as painful as it would have been if it was against the Commanders or the Lions or the Eagles next week. But Tampa Bay needs to get back on track pretty quickly. The saving grace in all this is the Saints did lose at the hands of the Eagles, Tampa Bay's next opponent. So at least the Buccaneers are still tied for first place in the NFC South.
Yeah, I don't think Servassier Dennis is off the hook either. I need to see more replays and like when the full tape comes out. But that first touchdown drive as well, when Bo Nix ran to the outside, Jordan Whitehead was covering the intended receiver on the play. And Servassier Dennis just stood there and like didn't go after Bo Nix, and Nix just walked into the end zone. So there was mistakes all over the place. Like even Zion McCollum, who was one of the best players in a game where no one played well, like he came close to another interception, but couldn't come down with an interception. Jamel Dean, who we already mentioned, had a bad game. There was a tip pass later in that game where, the Bucs are still down 16 or whatever it was. But you got that interception. You at least stopped the Broncos from putting points on the board. And the Bucs just had no answers for everything, which goes back to coaching, as he said. Liam Cohen, I mean, Josh Capo kind of disagreed with some of the commenters, but it was a little Dave Canales-esque with just running the ball so much on first down. Like, And I don't think it was in a sense of we have to establish the run. I just think I guess, good for him for believing in his group to kind of get the ground game going. And I kind of like they had a 3rd and 2 where they ran it with Bucky Irving up the middle, and he got about like 9 yards, and it was a nice play. But there was too many just 2nd and longs and 3rd and longs. And while Justin School wasn't as bad as he was a week ago, overall the pass blocking was just as bad. There was no adjustments. Cody Mauch did not look good once again. And Baker's got to get rid of that ball sometimes too. I get that there was the Houdini act, which was a lot of fun the first 2 weeks when he was making people miss and stuff like that. But he's not Michael Vick. He's not Lamar Jackson.
Right.
Yeah, it was great it happened in those first 2 games, but sometimes you have to get rid of the ball, all right? You're not going to make the big play that gets on ESPN and you got Chris Berman go, whoop, whoop, every single time. You had to be a little more smart with the football and not just killing drives, because that second half, that first drive out, they got a couple of first downs. They had some momentum rolling. And then as soon as they got sacked, it was done. And they couldn't recover from, 2nd and 15s and 3rd and 17s because the Broncos they had good coverage down the field. Like I said before, the Bucs just had no answers in every single area.
And you know what? And I'm not letting Liam Cohen off the hook whatsoever, but sometimes you stay true to the game plan a little too long, right? We talked about how this Broncos run defense might be susceptible to having Tampa Bay a bounce back game, right? And you look at Tampa Bay did run the ball 16 times for 91 yards, 5.7 yards per carry, but there were a couple of chunk plays, right? There was a 9-yard run out of Rachaad White's 17 yards, right? That was one play out of Bucky Irving. And he did have a couple of nice carries, but out of 70 yards, nearly half of that came on a 32-yard run, right? So there's 14 other carries you have to account for. Sometimes you stay true to the game plan a little bit too much rather than adjusting to what's happening that day. It's one thing to look at the film from the first 2 weeks and say, well, we need to stick with this because they're not good against stopping the run. But today the Broncos were pretty good at stopping the run, right? Holding a team to 91 yards is better than allowing 143. So to me, mission accomplished, even though Tampa Bay averaged 5.7 yards per carry, none of those runs were really deadly outside of the Bucky Irving one that got Tampa Bay into the red zone and got a touchdown out of it. But it wasn't fatal because you won 26-7. So I think for Liam Cohen and also Todd Bowles too, Bo Nix came out doing something that he typically doesn't do, which is throw the ball down the field, right? He had 2 big chunk plays on that opening drive, one to Cortland Sutton, the other to Josh Reynolds. And that went against what the film said that he would do, which is to go out there and dink and dunk and all of that. And so from the get-go, you had Bo Nix in rhythm and you had Baker Mayfield out of rhythm, and the running game was kind of disjointed. And I just don't think that neither Todd Bowles nor Liam Cohen did anything well when it came to making the necessary adjustments to change the course of the game. The only thing that changed the course of the game briefly was that Levante David fumble, the Bucky Irving run, the Chris Godwin touchdown. That was a little blip on the radar, though. There was nothing that was sustainable on either side of the ball.
Right, and I don't hate the way you hated the result that happened, but I didn't mind the idea of having the Bucs corners play man to man and then just try to confuse Bo Nix and send the blitz after him. Yeah. But the rest of the game, the blitz never got home.
Never worked.
They had another game. The blitz didn't get home. Yaya Diaby was invisible once again. Joe Trachenko had that good pass rush where he came so close to knocking the ball out, which would have been a defensive touchdown or a safety or whatever it was. But ultimately, the pressures, while they were great last week, they weren't good enough this week. And to talk about Liam Cohen once again, this is 2 weeks in a row where Mike Evans really wasn't a big part of the offense or a focal point. And he doesn't have to be the focal point every single week because we saw the production from Chris Godwin. But you know what? Teams are going to say, all right, Chris Godwin, you do your thing. We're only going to let one guy hurt us. Where was the other help? Where was anything else going on in that game besides Bucky getting some late runs when the game was maybe not out of reach, but it was still a 2-possession game where you need a couple 2-point conversions? Because Chris Godwin led the way with receiving yards at 53. Their next leading receiver, Cade Otton, 7 catches, but for 47 yards.
Yeah.
He had no impact on the game besides fumbling at the end, but that game was over anyway. So Cade Otton had no impact on the game. Rachaad White, 5 catches for 18 yards. Again, a 3.6 average. Jalen McMillan, another game with just 1 reception. Jalen McMillan's playing as much time as Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And if Mike is going to go up against Patrick Surtain, who's a great corner, and, he's not going to be involved like he was in week 2. Well, someone else has to make a play besides Chris Godwin, because everyone's going to go, we're going to shut down everything else. We're going to shut down the run. And, Chris Godwin will have some nice moments, but we're going to slow down the rest of that offense. So I think that's really frustrating, too, is we haven't seen anybody else break out really since, besides Chris Godwin, outside of week 1, we've seen very little contributions from anybody else in the passing game for the Bucs. And, that's a scary sight moving forward against some great defensive teams. Like the Eagles looked terrible against the Falcons, and then they shut down the Saints, who were scoring 40 points a game. That's that's something really important to pay attention to. And then, the Chiefs obviously have a championship defense. The Ravens are always going to be a well-coached team with Jim Harbaugh. Or John Harbaugh. I mean,
and I'll tell you,
step it up.
He does, and so does the offensive line. And it wasn't just one culprit. You had 7 sacks today of Baker Mayfield, 2 by a guy that I hadn't even really heard of before today. In terms of the Tillman, Dontre Tillman, 2 sacks today. Jonathan Cooper had 1. Zach Allen had 1. Nick Bonito had 1.
7 sacks allowed. You're not going to win many games.
James Franklin Myers had 1
times.
7 sacks, and then also 9 quarterback hits on Baker Mayfield. And so his longest throw of the game was 13 yards. The longest pass play today was 13 yards. There just wasn't a lot of time to throw. Baker was feeling pressure when it wasn't there because he was hit, he was pressured, he was sacked so much in this game. So there was a little bit of phantom pressure there as well. He just did not look comfortable at all. And as a result, he was checking the ball down to Cade Otton. And Denver said, sure, why not? We're not afraid of Cade Otton. Nobody's afraid of Cade Otton. 6.7 yards per carry or per catch. So, and then conversely speaking, no sacks by Tampa Bay today, only 2 quarterback hits. Those were both by Chris Braswell. 2 on Bo Nix, who did a good job of Bo Nix looked like Josh Allen today. He really did, just in terms of the way he moved around the pocket and eluded pressure. And we've got some super chats to get to. And
we do.
We're kind of breaking our rule
last
here.
Last thing I want to mention, and then we'll get to all the super chats, is, and Josh Capel pointed this out, so credit to him. The Broncos did a great job of moving the pocket, letting Bo Nix roll out. The Bucs didn't do that at all. They said, all right, Baker, just keep dropping back 5-10 steps, and then hopefully the line blocks for you. And
but you know what? That's so hard to do when you're a right-handed quarterback and who's playing right tackle. Justin School, right? If it was Tristan Wirfs at right tackle, you're rolling that way. You got a solid pass protector there. I can understand that. But
but they can all block one way and have Baker roll out, play action bootlegs, things like that. They didn't even try it.
They didn't try it, and maybe they were afraid of Justin School and his level of pass protection. I don't know. This team, maybe the next roundtable is which Buccaneer does Tampa Bay miss the most? Luke Gedeke, Vita Vea, Elijah Cansey, Antoine Winfield Jr.
That's not bad. I like that.
or all of the above. Today was all of the above for sure. Let's get to some of these super chats. Thanks for waiting patiently.
Yeah, appreciate you guys, but clearly we had to get a lot off our chest from this game. Thanks to KGH for Life for this $2 super chat, who says changes needed on the interior of the offensive line. Yeah, it's Cody Mount didn't look good. Again, we got to go back to the tape, but based on some quick replays that they showed and some other things like that, looks like Cody Mount got beat again one-on-one. Even I know it's not interior, but Tristan Wirfs had some mistakes too in the game. So. Again, blame has to go all around to everybody. Cody Mount, they're relying on taking on a big step forward this year, and he hasn't just yet. There's still plenty of time to fix a lot of the situation, but this run game looks like how it did last year, where you're not getting a lot of efficiency. You got the splash plays, but it was too little too late. The splash running plays came when you were down 15-16, and there's going to be a lighter box anyway because you don't want to allow the big throws down the field. So, really, really disappointing with the run game.
I talked to Cody Mauch after the game about all of the pressure and all of the sacks. And again, it wasn't one guy. I mean, you can look across the offensive line. Everybody gave up pressures and or sacks. And he said that they're really struggling with their levels in terms of their pass set. It has to be that pocket. It has to be like a wall. And right now, these guys, they're allowing these little creases by not getting. Some guys are setting a little too far back in the backfield. Some guys aren't setting far back enough. And you're letting little creases in the wall. And when you do that, it just leads to trouble. I mean, it's if you have a dam and you're trying to keep all the water out, when you have a crack, the water is going to come in. And that's what's happening over these past 2 weeks. The other thing, too, is they're just not doing a good job picking up stunts. And you can go back to the preseason. That starting interior offensive line got some work together, but it obviously needs more. And you're going to continue to see stunting from the defensive tackles inside until Ben Bredesen and Graham Barton and Cody Mauch prove that they can pick up these stunts with these defensive ends twisting inside.
Yeah, and I'm a little tired of they didn't play in the preseason. Nobody plays in the preseason anymore. All right, these are adults, the professional football players. They're paid to do a job, and they're just not getting the job done. So I'm a little tired of there's not enough chemistry yet. You've been playing for 3 weeks now. Figure it out. Nicola, thanks for the $1.99 super chat, says, it's one game, we'll be okay. O-line/pass rush, awful, though. Yeah, see, I was trying to keep a level head at the end of the game, kind of thinking, well, they're not. The Bucs clearly are not as bad as they looked today.
Correct.
Today was an awful game. It's one of those you gotta flush it, put it on the wayside, and move on. You can't, have Todd Bowles on the shoulders of everybody for a great performance against the Lions, and then say, well, he's not the answer for Tampa Bay as the head coach when they have a game like this. Yeah. Football, it fluctuates. There's peaks and valleys. They're probably not as good as they were beating the Lions, but they're not as bad as they were, losing this way to the Denver Broncos. So I think it's important to keep that with a grain of salt. But I also agree the trenches are probably the biggest issue for the Bucs right now.
I agree, and you got to find that resolve. It's grown man stuff in the trenches, and Tampa Bay does have a lot of young players. They got to grow up, and they got to fight like men in there. And this is the exact quote from Zion McCollum. I'll read it to you. Adam Slavon just transcribed it here. This is what Zion had to say. Very refreshing to hear because of the honesty. He said, they were pissed off for a week, and we were happy for a week. That was the major difference coming into it. They had an intensity that they were going to punch us in the mouth, and we were thinking that we were just going to roll the ball over. And what that means is that they were going to show up and win. And it didn't work that way in the NFL. They call it any given Sunday for a reason, because intensity and execution trump talent, right? If you have two teams and you have one team that's more talented than the other, and both of the executions are on a par level, both of the intensities, and you've seen kind of like those heavyweight fights, the more talented team is likely going to win. But that was not the case today. I mean, the intensity was on the Broncos side from the get-go. The execution certainly was, and that was the difference.
Yes, it was. We got a $2 super chat from Meets McGee, a little vulgar. Bucs cheeks got clapped without baby oil. It was pretty bad. It was, I mean, the game was shocking. It was absolutely shocking. And thanks, Meets McGee, for the $2 super chat. Yeah. I'm sure there's people out there that predicted like Denver maybe gets an upset win. They started out 0-2, but no one had Denver winning by
this
3
way.
scores.
No, not this way, and not from the start where this fight was over from the first drive on when Denver was up 7-0. You didn't know it at the time, but looking back, the Bucs were waiting to recapture the momentum, and they never really did.
Yeah, I go back to that first drive of the second half. If they were able to score in that drive, I think the game maybe gets dictated a little bit. But the sack killed the drive, and that was not the story of the game, because there's several stories in
Sure.
this game, and I think the offense and defense are equally to blame. But
No doubt. And throw the coaches in
that,
there too.
yeah. So that I don't know. That's certainly a moment in the game to think about. Thanks to Cali Bucs, a Pewter Report YouTube channel member,
Yeah.
and also giving us a $1.99 super chat. Says it's time to give Jose Ramirez snaps. Defense needs sacks. Well, they got to try something for sure. I mean, no Marquise Watts really. Obviously, no Jose Ramirez. JTS has been the best outside linebacker so far for the Buccaneers. Braswell's had some good QB hits. They're not getting it done really across the board. Again, 2 games in a row with no sacks. The pressures were great against Detroit, but not even close today against Denver. If the blitzes aren't working, that's always been the death knell for the Bucs. If there's no blitzes, then the guys underneath are open, and it's a million paper cuts, but it gets the job done for the opponent. That's exactly what we saw today.
I'm shocked at the start that Yaya Diaby has had so far. I know he missed training camp. He had the ankle sprain. He's probably not at 100%. There's nobody 3 weeks in who's at 100% right now. That's still no excuse. He went up against an inferior opponent today, a guy getting his first NFL start. And if Yaya Diaby is going to be that guy for the Buccaneers, and we lauded his 7 pressures last week and 5 against the Commanders. I don't know how many pressures he had in this game. We'll look at the next gen stats and Pro Football Focus, and they'll tell us. I don't remember him being much of a factor today whatsoever. 2 tackles. It's time for him, if he's going to be that guy for this team, he's got to step up and make some plays. And he didn't. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka didn't. Chris Braswell, 2 quarterback hits. That we need. The Bucs need more at this point. Yeah, why not try Jose Ramirez? You got to look for a spark, because the pass rush has not gotten home now in the last 2 games in terms of getting sacks. Tampa Bay has been sackless.
Yeah, the stats don't lie on that one. Thanks to Tusk3 for a $19.99 super chat, or Tusk the third. Regardless, thank you very much for this generous super chat. Who says, "Where the heck is the leadership? Injuries aside, where are the leaders? So disappointing." Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because Baker is a fiery guy. He's like the rah-rah guy of the group. Mike Evans has never really been that. It's interesting. Levante David isn't really that, but they also, there was a big sit down with Levante this week, I think on the NFL Network, and they showed an old video when the Bucs were getting torched by the Falcons. They were down like 55-0, and Levante was screaming on the sidelines, like pretty much about to cry. He was like that emotional and passionate about it.
Yeah.
And they didn't really show cameras on the sideline that much of like players talking or whatever, but yeah, Bucs don't really have too many of the rah-rah guys. I mean, Baker, yes, is rah-rah, but he's also like, he's already yelling in general because he's a quarterback and he's like making calls and things of that nature.
There's no fire starter. That's the fatal flaw for this team. Is a bunch of good guys, bunch of good guys who are tight knit. There's a lot of great camaraderie here, but there's no Jason Pierre-Paul, there's no Warren Sapp, there's no Hardy Nickerson, there's no fire starter on this team that is the ass kicker that you need. Now, at the same time, keep in mind, you get to have the C on your chest because you're one of the better players, right? And if you're not playing well, you're in no position really to open your mouth about, come on, guys, let's do this and all that. Baker didn't play well. Mike Evans was an afterthought. He didn't get the ball today, right? The leading tackler today for Tampa Bay was cornerback Jamel Dean. That's never a good thing. Christian Izien with 8 tackles. Levante had a very mediocre game today. 8 tackles. He did have the forced fumble. KJ Britt had 6. He's a rah-rah kind of guy, but again, you got to make plays. If you want people to listen to you, if you want to be the fire starter, you got to make that tackle on 4th and goal at the 1-yard line. That's not negotiable. You have to do that. And when you don't do that, then you probably don't have a lot to say. And so I don't know. Anton Winfield Jr. is not a rah-rah guy. Jordan Whitehead, I didn't think played that well. 6 tackles today, kind of middle of the pack. Guess how many pass breakups there were today? 5. C.J. Brewer had a pass breakup.
Yep.
Okay. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka had one. Tyke Smith had one. And Zion McCollum had two. So nobody played well enough to really even open their mouth and lead. Because leadership starts with your play, not your mouth. A lot of guys can talk. Good Lord, Jameis Winston talked. And Devin White talked, right?
Yep.
But nobody listened because their play didn't match the words. So there will be people stepping up this week, and this is a wake-up call. And we'll see how they respond next week against the Eagles. If they beat the Eagles, Matt, then you just chalk this up to a bad game. The Buccaneers in 2020 lost a game they should have won against the Bears in Chicago on Thursday night. This just stinks more because this was against an 0-2 team, a lesser talent team at home. But, it's season's not over.
Right. It's nice that everyone is great friends. That's important for team chemistry. But sometimes when you get a situation like that, it's almost like people are kind of afraid to hurt someone's feelings, which the Bucs kind of needed that today. They needed someone to hurt their teammates' feelings to understand that you got to get it together.
I've got a funny feeling there's going to be some hurt feelings in the film room, and Todd Bowles and Liam Cohen better be the ones hurting those feelings.
Yeah,
because their feelings are hurt as it is. They're going to project that onto the players, and again, we'll see how this team comes out next week and responds. And maybe, Matt, I don't know. Maybe they just need a Celsius. Maybe that was.
Yeah, I was going to say, when my feelings are hurt, one thing that always cheers me up is a Celsius energy drink. Of course, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. They got some new flavors that you guys need to check out. It's the sparkling watermelon lemonade and the sparkling kiwi strawberry. Tons of great flavors of Celsius. So if you need to know where to find one, go to the Celsius store locator on their website. Punch in your address and it'll tell you the closest location where you could pick one up. Could be a Walmart, a health and fitness store, or might just be your bodega.
Bodega.
And after you keep going to your bodega and you love Celsius and you want more, you want to buy it in bulk, you can purchase it in bulk over on Amazon with the subscribe and save. I'd recommend getting that variety pack because there's so many great flavors and varieties, the spice of life. Why limit yourself to one when you can have it all? So, do it on Amazon. The subscribe and save, have it sent to your place of residence whenever you would like. Just make sure you drink Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. We have a new Pewter Report YouTube channel member. So shout out to Logan Valente becoming a new YouTube channel member. We appreciate that. Thank you for all of your support. And this is probably a good time as well to give a special shout out to all of our Pewter Platinum members that are on our YouTube channel. So thank you to Scott Federico, Guru, Scotty J, Rathel Gordon, and Noah Parr. We appreciate all your support as a Pewter Platinum member. Thank you for joining with us and watching all of our shows. And like I said, we appreciate the support.
We sure do. And if you want to show your support for Pewter Report, well, there's a great way you can do it. And that is by going to the front page of Pewter Report TV and clicking on the join button. That'll give you all of the information that you need about becoming a Pewter Report TV channel member. And there's 4 different levels that we have at different price points. All of them have perks. All of them have the loyalty badges and custom emojis. The Pewter Pro members get early access to videos like My Pewter Pulse and some of the other videos that we do. The Pewter Premier members also get the exclusive Q&A videos that we do called the Pewter Insider on Friday. Matt and I do those typically at 1:30. And those are fun to do and give you some extra insights into the game just 48 hours away from kickoff. And then the Pewter Platinum members get all of those perks, free merch from Pewter Report, as well as twice annual Platinum member meetups in Tampa. We'll have one as soon as the Bucs season concludes in Tampa, as well as one in training camp. So we're excited to tell you more details about that as the offseason gets here. But first, plenty of football to break down and talk about. And now the Buccaneers, they've got to bounce back from this game. We still have some more super chats to get to. So let's do that, Matt.
Yeah, thanks to Ehi Note for this $4.99 super chat. Yes, they have 2 in a row. I'm not sure how different they are, but this one says, I said all week that teams need to throw on us on first downs. We always bring 5 and bring run blitzes. The Broncos passed the ball every first down except for 1 in the first half. Yeah, the run game was not a problem for the Bucs defense. They sprung one late with their third string running back, but for the most part, they did a great job containing a run team that couldn't really run the ball in the first place. It was all the passing game for Denver and mobility by Bo Nix that really cut up Tampa Bay's defense.
Yeah, he looked great. I mean, we talked about Bo Nix looking awful the first 2 weeks, and he did. But this is one of those games where you had hoped that Todd Bowles would treat him more like Bryce Young or treat him like Will Levis from last year. Instead, he wasn't quite C.J. Stroud today, but he was closer to C.J. Stroud than he was those other guys. No turnovers from Bo Nix today, and that proved to be deadly for Tampa Bay's defense. Bo Nix was 25 of 36 for 216 yards, and he scrambled 9 times for 47 yards, including a 22-yard run that was just embarrassing, including a touchdown as well to get the Denver Broncos on the board. And that's kind of why we said this. He nixed the Bucs' chances of going 3-0 because he played better than I thought, better than any of the Buccaneer defenders thought. You have to tip your cap to him. Sean Payton had this guy ready, and the execution was there from his side of the ball, and it just wasn't on Todd Bowles and his side of the ball, and the Buccaneers had no answer offensively. So it was a very, very disappointing day, but you hope that and you know what, Matt? If you're going to lose, I'd almost rather the Buccaneers just completely get their ass kicked today the way that they did.
Yeah.
And not come back and polish up the final score and kind of come back late. Just have it be a total team collapse where there's no excuses, very little worked. So there's nothing that you can feel really good about, because right now the Buccaneers should not feel good about this game at all. There shouldn't be anything they can hang their hat on, except for the running of Bucky Irving. And we just have to say it. He should be the Bucs starting running back. Now, he had 9 carries. Tampa Bay was behind, so they didn't run the ball a whole bunch. But 6 carries for Rachaad White. We talked about it at the beginning. 9 carries, 70 yards. I'm not good at math, so I'll read you the statistic here. 7.8 yards per carry, Matt. Last time I checked, that's a reasonably good number in terms of a rushing average. Rachaad White, 6 carries, 17 yards, 2.8. Last time I checked, that is not good. That's not acceptable. This team needs to just come out and say, Bucky Irving's going to be the starting running back because he's earned it. He makes the most out of his opportunities. And the more carries that you give to Rachaad White and the starting running back role, the more likely you are to fall behind and not convert first downs and not get points on the board early on.
I know week 2, Baker Mayfield led the Bucs in rushing, but in terms of running backs go, Bucky Irving's led the running backs in all 3 games in rushing yards. If that doesn't tell a lot, I don't know what does. And I know it's not all on Rachaad White, but he was the starting running back on a team that was dead last in rushing yards last season, and was also maybe not the starter because Leonard Fournette was there, but he was also often used running back that was dead last in rushing yards 2 seasons ago. So something has to change, and they have an answer in-house with Bucky Irving. Shout out to Eddie. No, we kind of already answered your question, but thank you for this other $4.99 super chat. Appreciate it. Bucs Basement, thank you for this $2 super chat and a little positivity as well, saying the only positive is that they lost to an AFC team and the Saints lost. Yeah, I almost kind of wish we didn't talk about it this morning, or maybe it would have helped the Bucs out a little bit. But that was a big comeback win for the Eagles in a real slugfest game against the Saints. They kept going to it on red zone.
15
so I
to
feel like
12.
I saw a good amount of it. Yeah. And, and that's good for the Bucs too, because I don't know. I always like when for the Bucs or whoever you're watching, if they play a team that had won the week before, I think it's better than playing a team that lost. Might be a little more motivated and hungry, and especially the way that the Eagles lost to the Falcons on Monday Night Football. If they would have lost to the Saints today, I mean, they'd be foaming at the mouth to play against the Bucs. So this obviously helps with being tied for the division. We'll see how the Falcons look tonight against the Kansas City Chiefs. And then the Falcons and Saints play against each other next week. So this is a big opportunity for the Bucs if they can get back on the horse, defeat the Eagles. That's another NFC win, and they'd be looking at either being tied or potentially having sole possession of first place in the NFC South after they get their turn against the Saints and the Falcons. So still a lot to play for. Today was discouraging, but the season's not over. They're 2-1.
Correct. Yeah, they are. And we'll get more into the Eagles tomorrow and on Wednesday's podcast, which is our preview. But just a quick little snapshot here. The Eagles had 480 yards of offense against the Saints, and they only allowed New Orleans. Now, keep in mind, New Orleans averaged over 40 points per game in the first 2 weeks of the season. They held New Orleans to 219 yards at home and only 12 points. And they picked off Derek Carr to end the game, so their defense really came up with a big-time play there. Saquon Barkley, 17 carries, 147 yards. That's an 8.6-yard average and 2 touchdowns. And Jalen Hurts threw for 311 yards. So Dallas Goedert, 10 catches on 11 targets, 170 yards.
Yeah.
So the Eagles really found some offense against the New Orleans Saints on the road. And now they're going to be on the road again in Tampa. Keep in mind that Tampa Bay's defense, without Vita Vea, without Kalaji Kancey up front, allowed the Broncos to rush for 136 yards, averaging 4.9 yards per carry. So they're going to have to get well soon. Not just Luke Gedeke in the trenches, but they're going to need Kalaji Kancey and Vita Vea. And I'm not sure they're going to get one or both of those guys back this week, but as soon as possible. Holy smokes, they need them.
Yeah, you're spot on with that. Thanks to Logan Valente for this $5 super chat. When Nixed is completing underneath passes for 7 yards every throw, why is Jamel Dean 10 yards off the line of scrimmage when there is no threat to push the ball deep? I think the Bucs saw how the first drive went, where they did hit a couple of big plays and got so worried about it that it screwed with their heads for the rest of the game. But as we saw last week, they allowed a big play, but they didn't let it deter them, and they still played tight coverage, and they were fine the rest of the game. This week, whatever, it was just a different story, and ultimately it hurt the Bucs.
Yeah, and really without Vita Vea and CJ, or what I should say, Kalaji Kancey, CJ Brewer, Greg Gaines, Logan Hall, Will Golston, they're just guys. They just Jags, as you call them, just a guy.
Yeah.
That's all they were. Didn't do well stopping the run. Certainly did not do well in terms of putting pressure on the quarterback today. They played better last week than they did today. But the mediocrity at the interior defensive line is stunning. And now Logan Hall, he's had 2 games, Matt, where he could show up, make some plays, prove that he was worth the 33rd overall pick, and he's just not that guy. And keep waiting for him to show some signs that he could live up to the athleticism, the draft potential, and it's just not there.
Yeah, this plays into Tusk the Third's super chat. So thanks for the $4.99 super chat. It says, how disappointing is it to not get anything from JTS or Logan Hall? Light is on blast here. These guys, these are guys we need to step up. JTS, I think, has actually played pretty well this year. Yeah. Today wasn't ideal, but again, no one played well. Logan Hall, I'm over the Logan Hall experiment. Will Golston was wrong about him. He's not the next TJ Watt or JJ Watt, I should say.
Yeah.
Like you said, he's just a guy. He's there.
He's Bob Watt. He's Tim Watt. He's Steve Watt. He's not.
He could have been
just a regular guy.
He could have been a 7th round pick, and bring the same production that he has as what he was, which was a 2nd round pick, but also the Bucs' first pick in that draft. The experiment's over. Jason Light, they already decided with Joe Tryon-Shoyinka that they're kind of done with him, but now all of a sudden he's playing well. They're going to be looking at defensive tackles next year.
JTS is playing well. Keep in mind they drafted an outside linebacker in the 2nd round to eventually replace JTS, right? And they were going to draft Johnny Newton from St. Petersburg. He played at Illinois. Also goes by Jerzan Newton, who was drafted by the Commanders in the 2nd round, if Graham Barton had not been there in the 1st round, because his team knows they've missed on Logan Hall. And they didn't, and so you kind of give Logan Hall, all right, you got one more year, like you're on the spot, you're on the clock, and he's not answering the bell, unfortunately. And so they'll be looking for defensive tackles to add to that rotation with Vita Vea, Kalijah Cansey next year in the draft for sure.
Thanks to Paul, aka Florida Dreamhouse, gifting yet another Pewter Report membership. That's
Thank you so
mighty,
much,
mighty
Paul.
kind of you. You did one during the Pewter Game Day show today, so thanks for doing that again. And hope you had a great time at Disney. And glad you didn't really get to watch too much of the Bucs game. Maybe you not watching was why they lost, but nonetheless, thank you.
To answer Monica's question here, Baker is okay. He took a pounding. He's a tough guy. No serious injuries. He was quick to the podium, didn't shower. He wanted to get it over with and head home and hit the couch because he got hit quite a bit today. But he's a tough dude. Nothing serious to report there in terms of any injuries. But they need to protect him better. And as Matt said, and very accurately so, and Baker even said it himself, he caused some of those pressures. He caused some of those sacks by holding onto the ball too much and not getting rid of it sooner.
Meets McGee with a $10 super chat. Thank you very much. Says, Jake Camarda, I hope went home and packed his bags. And I also spoke on this since last season. The past 2 seasons, a Bowles-led team had games where the complaints have been about lack of energy. I think that's fair, but Jake Camarda had a solid game, in my opinion. He had 2 punts within the 10. He had a booming punt on his first kick. So
67 yards,
Yeah. So, I mean, I understand the annoyance with him in the first 2 games, but in my opinion, he was fine today.
I agree. 47.3 yard average, Matt, a net of 40.5. I know there was a breakout punt return by Marvin Mims, 27 yards, but that was punted so deep into the territory. I want to say that maybe the Broncos started around the 35-yard line. That wasn't a field flipping type of play where he brought the ball back to midfield or into Bucs territory. You don't want to see that from your special teams coverage. 27 yards is a lot, but at the end of the day, still had a 40.5 yard net average. That's plenty good. No touchbacks, and 2, as you said, down to inside the 20-yard line. It wasn't his fault today that this team was poor. It was mostly on the offensive defensive side.
Agree with you there. Thanks to Paul, aka Florida Dreamhouse, with this $5 super chat. Says Baker will be on IR with this repugnant offensive line play. I guarantee, and he puts that in all caps, guarantee a bounce back win, and we chuck this loss in the trash can. I think that's the only way the Bucs can look at this, is just say, this isn't who we are as a team. We know that's not us. That was an outlier, and it's not going to happen again. I agree with you, Scott. Like, if they are going to lose, just get your ass kicked and let it, wake you up. Take the smelling salts for the next game. I think it'll really perk up this group, and maybe we'll look back on this in a couple of weeks, maybe going into the bye when they finish that gauntlet, and we'll say it was one of the best things that could have happened to the Bucs this season.
No, I'm with you, Matt. Sometimes you want to learn those lessons. It's better to learn lessons from wins than losses. But if you're going to lose, just get your ass kicked, and that way the film stings, and you want it to sting, right? And here's the good news for the Buccaneers, Bucs fans. The Eagles are coming to town. They're fresh off of beating the division rival New Orleans Saints on the road. So the Eagles are formidable. They knocked off an unbeaten New Orleans team, just like Tampa Bay lost today too. They have to be taken seriously. They're going to be coming in here looking for revenge for the playoff loss that Tampa Bay dealt them, just like the Buccaneers looked for revenge for the playoff loss that the Lions dealt them when they went up there to Detroit in week 2. So Tampa Bay can relate to this. They know that the Eagles are coming in town to punch him in the mouth, and they got to stand there and take it and then punch right back, because that's what happened this week. The Broncos punched in the mouth. There was no answer by Tampa Bay. So I fully expect the Eagles film will have the Buccaneers' attention. And they also know that they can take the fight to the Eagles. And when that happens, 32-9 happened here on this same field last year in the playoffs. So they just got to get ready to play. Again, football is a game about emotion and intensity and momentum, just as much as it is about X's and O's and talent. And like I've said before, when you have intensity and execution on your side, that can beat talent any given Sunday, Monday, or Thursday. And that's what happened today. And I think Tampa Bay got the wake-up call it needed. I'm not saying they're going to beat the Eagles, but man, they're not going to look this bad. They're going to have a lot more fight and intensity next week for sure. Hopefully the execution follows suit.
Yeah, and like we mentioned earlier, we'll talk a lot more about the Eagles, specifically on Wednesday's show, probably a little bit on Monday as well. But something that may help the Bucs is obviously they're very familiar with the Eagles, having played them twice last year. I couldn't tell from the game today because it was just on sporadically. But the Eagles, at least last week, do not blitz a lot, which I think will help the Bucs in this case, just based on the struggles that they've had. But on the flip side, I mean, if they had trouble with a mobile Bo Nix, we obviously know what Jalen Hurts can do as a mobile quarterback. So that's another bit of pressure for the defensive line that just, wasn't able to really get much pressure in today's game. So a lot to weigh on this upcoming week for when the Bucs play.
I agree. Eagles. The good news, Bucs fans, even though it's not a victory Monday, we are going to do our show tomorrow, our Pewter Report podcast at 4 o'clock, and at 4:20 we have roll call. That's always fun. So make sure that you stay tuned to the Pewter Report podcast tomorrow for that show. But also, Walk-Ons has got something special going on Mondays as well.
What an amazing comeback, Coach.
You're not kidding. I mean, we did lose the game badly, but coming to Walk-Ons afterward, the team got a much-needed win off the field.
Walk-Ons for the win.
Happy hour tomorrow at Walk-Ons, folks. It might be the best happy hour in all of Tampa. Matter of fact, I'm going to say that it is. With 3 locations to serve you, visit the Walk-Ons in Wesley Chapel, my neck of the woods, just across from the Outlet Mall, down there by Matt Matera at the Midtown location. That's closer to the stadium. And then also in Lakeland for Monday happy hours, 3 p.m. to close. So when you want to watch Monday Night Football, you want to do it at Walk-Ons because you can enjoy $3 happy hour pours, $3.99 domestic pints, $4 house wines, $5.49 22-ounce domestic drafts, $6 fried pickles, small waffle cheese fries, $7 boom boom shrimp and queso dip, and $8 boneless wings and the cheeseburger sliders, which are my favorite. If you can't make it to Walk-Ons on Monday, holy moly, make it there on Tuesday because it is happy hour all day long from open to close, including $5 Tito's. Then you have 2 opportunities for Walk-Ons to help you out with some happy hours from 3 to 6 and then from 9 to close on Wednesday and Thursday. Friday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. And don't forget, next Saturday and Sunday, game day specials at Walk-Ons. Again, 3 locations: Wesley Chapel, Midtown Tampa, and Lakeland.
We have a super chat from Matt Giddens of $4.99. Thank you very much,
Thank
Matt. I don't see another comment, though, so feel free if you want to comment again soon. We will put it up on the screen to acknowledge your super chat. But thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. And also, too, we've been getting some great response and great feedback from the folks at Autograph because you guys apparently are downloading the free Autograph Fandom Rewarded app in droves. That's right. You can download this app for free on the App Store for Apple and for Google Play for Android users. What is Autograph? Well, it has all of Pewter Report's content as well as other Buccaneer-related content from other media outlets. So it's a great one-stop shop for all of your news about your favorite team, whether it's pro or college, or different sports. I've got a Kansas State section where I can read all of my newspapers and websites about how awful my Wildcats looked last night against BYU. Matt, I've been subjected to 24 hours of absolutely horrible football. I got to take a mental health day tomorrow or something. It's been bad. But Autograph is fantastic. It's free to use, free to download. And here's the best part. When you read our stories or watch our Pewter Report videos on Autograph, you get rewarded for that. You earn points. And with those points, you can cash those in for merchandise or for tickets. So it's a great way to do what you're already doing, consuming Pewter Report content, but earning some points for it. Use the promo code Pewter when you do. That lets them know that we sent you in their direction. And it's co-founded by Tom Brady on the belief that the devotion should be rewarded for the future of fandom, which belongs to the fans. Matter of fact, Tom Brady will be back in Tampa next week to call the Bucs and Eagles game. So that will be interesting to see and hear his commentary as he comes back to Raymond James Stadium, not to play, but to call the game.
It'll be his first game where the Cowboys aren't playing, which is nice. And Brady, obviously, we all know all of his history with the Bucs. Has history with the Eagles too. Won a Super Bowl against them and then lost a Super Bowl against them. And Meets McGee brings up a good point. Thanks for the $2 super chat. Devontae Smith, concussion, and A.J. Brown could be out. Yeah, it already looks like Brown's going to be out again. They said he was going to be out at least like 3 or 4 weeks. And Devontae Smith hurts my fantasy team. It also hurts my fantasy team that Mike Evans hasn't really been producing. But, yeah, I mean, if the Eagles are down both of their starting wide receivers, that's huge for the Bucs. You always want to beat a team when they're at full strength. I think it's a little more meaningful. But, hey, the Bucs are injured as well, so they're not going to feel bad about it. And thanks to Sean for this $4.99 super chat, who says, what are your thoughts on Cody Mauch? Do you think the Bucs may be getting impatient with his inconsistent play?
The problem is they don't really have anybody to turn to right now in the middle, right? You've got Elijah Klein, you've got Robert Hainsey as maybe 2 options there. But the problem really is the chemistry, Matt. It's what Cody Mauch said. It's these guys not blocking at the same level and not having that perfect pocket where you're actually building a wall with interlocking pieces. Right now, these pieces are disjointed. The footwork isn't at the same level. It's allowing creases and cracks in pass protection. That's why Baker's getting pressured up the middle. That's why he's getting pressured off the edge as well. They just have to do a better job. And when you sometimes replace one of those offensive linemen and put somebody else in there, it doesn't do much for the chemistry, right? So sometimes it can work out and you have better individual play because of that. But it might just be a situation where these guys, and remember, Graham Barton is a rookie. That does make a difference. He's got a lot on his shoulders. I'm not blaming him for everything, but he didn't play a great game today. There were some great moments and some great plays that he had, but there were certainly some breakdowns too from his standpoint, and maybe some of those line protections weren't called correctly either. So they got to coach you better. They got to play better. Nobody wants to hear that, but that's the God's honest truth.
I think the Bucs still got to grit their teeth and bear it a little bit with Cody Mauch, but they can't continue to deal with that poor performance if it's going to continue for several weeks. But 3 weeks, I don't think is enough to truly give an answer. Thanks to them Apples 55 with the $4.99 super chat. I don't think the Bucs like them this week, but thanks nonetheless for the $4.99 super chat. It says Tristan Wirfs' play hasn't been elite like we are used to seeing. Yaya needs more moves than a bull rush. Yeah, Tristan struggled a little bit today, and Yaya hasn't gotten to the quarterback. So I think you're correct on both fronts. I've been waiting for Yaya to kind of bring in more moves, and I haven't seen a lot just yet. So I think you're spot on.
Yeah, I agree. And Tristan Wirfs, Matt, we kind of looked at each other a couple times in training camp, a rep here, rep there, where he clearly lost. And we kind of put it like in the back of our head saying, wow, like he doesn't look as dominant as he has in years past. And I'm not sure what's going on. He did lose some weight. He's a little bit lighter on his feet, but maybe he's lost some power. He's still a massive man. He's still super strong. I don't know. But he does not look like the best left tackle in football. He didn't look bad. He's the best one out of the bunch. But we have not seen elite level Tristan Wirfs on a down at basis just yet. But one thing that is elite, though, Matt, I think, is our coverage of the Buccaneers.
Yes, it is. So if you're not already following us, please do so. Our social media is at Pewter Report. You can find us on X, Facebook, and Instagram. And, of course, our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. It helps with our algorithm. And we're getting close to 16,000 subscribers. So if you're not already doing so, please subscribe. And, I think that'll pretty much do it for us on today's show. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Sorry the Bucs didn't play well, but at least we could all commiserate about it together. So for Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks, everybody, for watching. And we'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.